Hi, I'm John Hart. Welcome back to Mr. America Hart. Listen, today we're talking about HIT defined, high intensity training. What is it about high intensity training that makes it so unique? And let's clarify a few things so that you can actually take some of these principles, apply them in your own workouts, and major in the majors as opposed to majoring in minors. If I could borrow some university language right there. Okay, so what am I talking about here? HIT defined. Let's get down to it. There's a little bit of a history behind high intensity training, and a lot of you are already familiar with it. A lot of you most recently have become more familiar with it through a man who was a training mentor of mine, Mike Mentzer, high intensity, heavy duty training system. Mike taught me how to work out originally. I eventually paid the man to train me, and we were actually neighbors and we became friends. And then eventually I took my business to a whole other level using the principles behind his training. And then I carried on after his death, covering the consultations for MikeMentzer.com and heavy duty training. So that's sort of the brief history on where I come into all of this with Mike. But besides that, high intensity training, that's my experience. I've won, great titles and that I always dreamed of winning. And this was one of the main factors that helped me, was this type of training. Very brief, very intense. Workouts were very short and not done too often. Okay, that's some generalities I'm giving you right there, okay? Some people out there get hung up on particular aspects of high intensity training. So I'm going to try and give you a little bit of a definition so we can keep things a little bit clearer, okay? You'll see there's different factions involved with high-intensity training because people have hooked on to different parts of it. But let's just clearly define. High-intensity training. When it comes to your workouts, high-intensity training requires a very, very high effort at the end of a set of an exercise. Doesn't matter what we're talking about. Whether we're talking about barbell curls, whether we're talking about squats, whether we're talking about a leg press, rowing motion, chin-ups, whatever it is, whatever exercise you're doing, it requires, high-intensity training requires a very high, intense effort at the very end of that set. If you're doing, standard concentric reps, that means lifting and lowering to the point where you can no longer lift the weight in good form. I'll say that over and over again, in good form. Why in good form? Because the moment you start cheating in exercise, you're no longer targeting those muscles, okay? And you're using other muscles. You've gone beyond the point of failure at that point. That's a whole other subject. We're not going there today. So, a high effort on those last reps of a given set. If you do such a thing, okay? If you do such a thing. If it's very high, then the duration of that set cannot be very long. Meaning, well, if you're going to go and do a set of an exercise and take it to the very end, then you're not exactly going to be giving a maximal effort for the last 5, 8 repetitions of the set. As a matter of fact, you may choose to do the set for only 5 or 8 repetitions, in which case number 5 or number 8 will be the one repetition that counts the most. In some of my books I've written, Physique 101, Mr. America Shape-Up Series, Year 1 in the beginning. Those are 3 of the books that I've written. I constantly refer to that one last repetition as the light switch repetition. That's the one that's going to turn the light on, the signal in your body that you are requiring more strength, more lean muscle mass, and your body will accommodate that demand. Okay, as long as you can push through at least, we're only talking about the minimal amount to get to that high intense effort, at least that one final special repetition in good form where you're not sure whether or not you're going to be able to get it, and you go for it, you get it in good form, you complete the rep barely, okay? That's on almost every exercise that you can imagine. Squatting and deadlifting are probably the 2 exceptions that I've always made with myself and my clients, and that would be simply because the danger factor. Stop 1 repetition shy of that really questionable repetition where you're not sure if you're going to squat down and you may not come back up again. So for safety reasons, don't damage your back. Don't damage anything. Don't take that chance. It's not worth it. Do 1 repetition shy of that set, of that all-out effort on the last rep, unless you have a great spot, of course. And so the duration of the set by nature cannot be very long. Now, it's been proven, certain studies have been proven, it's been talked about that whether you're doing low repetitions of a set, 5, 8, 6, 10, or higher repetitions, 20, 30, somewhere in that zone, that as long as you take it to the very end and get that last special repetition to what's called momentary muscular failure, where you cannot get another one beyond that point in good form. Here it is again. Whether you're doing lower repetitions or slightly higher repetitions, it should not matter. You've still stimulated, you've still turned on that growth mechanism with that light switch repetition. And that's the most important factor. We're not getting caught up in the weeds here between should I do very low repetitions or very high repetitions. We're majoring in majors here, right? The subject matter is that last special repetition. And again, by nature, I want to point out the word duration. How long can you endure a set before you hit momentary muscular failure, as opposed to it's so high in repetitions and the weights are so light that you're going beyond the point of cardiorespiratory. In other words, your lungs, your heart cannot keep up with doing the demands, keeping up with the demands of the amount of oxygen you would need to squat, let's say, a set for 50 or 60 repetitions, where the first 49 of them are a sub-maximal effort, okay, just to get to number 50. And some people do that, and it's okay. They do that in the name of safety's sake. They don't want to overload their body with too much weight. If that's you, great. Again, we're majoring in majors here, okay, but there is a sort of a finite limit. Where is that limit? Probably up to the individual. If you're a super high endurance athlete, you probably can tolerate more repetitions if you want to train in that zone with higher repetitions. Should you? I don't think so. If you're an endurance athlete, that's my opinion. But should you? It's up to you. What do you enjoy doing? How do you like your workouts? There is an adherence factor here, so you have to adhere to your workouts. So make your choice. But whatever it is, you still have to take it to that end where you get that last special repetition in good form. So the duration of the set, it cannot go on and on and on and on, because you're no longer stimulating. You're using a weight that's so light that there's still the all or nothing principle. That still exists with muscle fibers. No matter how technical you want to get, the all or nothing principle says that muscle fibers fire in an all-out fashion or not at all. So if you pick up a pencil, your muscle fibers in your bicep are only going to, and your forearm are only going to fire a certain number of fibers, only those number required to pick the pencil up, and no more. That's how God made us, very efficient. Any more than that is unnecessary, so your body won't do it. If you pick up a 60-pound barbell, you're going to fire as many fibers as necessary in an all-out fashion to lift a 60-pound barbell, but no more than those number of fibers. So understanding that, you can see how if we want to get down to the deepest number of fibers, okay, right out the gate, a higher load would be necessary. But again, I don't want to get too caught up in those weeds. So anyway, that was duration. We're coming up with a few factors involved with high-intensity training. Can't last. With an all-out effort, it just cannot last very long as far as your maximum effort. It's an all-out repetition at the end of a set of a given number of repetitions of an exercise. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you would, down on your bottom left, there's a like button, a thumbs up button. Please give that a tap if you're liking these videos. And off to your right, you have the subscribe button. Please give that a tap to be notified of any future videos coming up on Mr. America Heart. We'll see you next time.